All right, let's just jump right in. When you hear the word startup, what's the first image that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably some brilliant founder, pitching their heart out to a room of serious-looking investors. We've all seen it on TV. There's this huge myth that to build anything great, you have to get a massive check from a venture capitalist. But what if I told you that's mostly just a Hollywood story?
The reality is, well, it's a lot different. Take a look at this number, 5%. Kind of seems small, right? Well, get this. That number represents the entire universe of startups that actually live out that classic TV show narrative.
That's right. Only about 5% of startups get funding from venture capital. That is a ridiculously small slice of the pie. And a number that small, well, it brings up a really big question. If only 5% are getting that VC money,
then how in the world does the other 95% of them do it? How does that massive majority actually get their businesses off the ground? Well, the answer is a super powerful strategy, and it's called bootstrapping.
So today, we are going to pull back the curtain on the secret of that 95%. We're going to dive in and understand not just what bootstrapping is, but how you can actually think like a bootstrapper to turn your idea into a real business with little or even no cash.
So at its heart, bootstrapping is actually pretty simple. It's the art of building a company by using its own money, the revenue it earns, to pay for its own growth. You're not selling off big chunks of your company or taking on scary debt. You're just being clever and using the money you make from your actual customers to climb to the next level.
But here's the thing, and this is really the key. Bootstrapping isn't just a financial tactic you pull out of a textbook. It is a fundamental mindset. It's about being incredibly resourceful, almost obsessively focused on cash flow, and making really smart decisions to survive and grow intelligently, not just for the sake of growing fast.
Okay, so theory is great, but to really get this, we're going to play a little game. I want you to imagine you're the entrepreneur. This is a thought experiment that's going to show you exactly how this bootstrapper mindset works when the rubber hits the road.
So, here's your mission. You've got this amazing idea for a board game based on the TV show Shark Tank. It's a guaranteed hit. The only catch? You have absolutely no money to start with. Zero. Zilch. Nada. So, how are you going to pull this off?
This right here is the mountain you have to climb. And every single one of these steps, from getting the official license to designing the game to actually making thousands of them, each one traditionally costs a ton of money up front. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars, money that you just don't have.
All right, let's tackle the first big problem. A really good game designer is going to cost you a few $1,000, at least. You have $0. So what's the bootstrapper's move here? You completely change the deal. Instead of paying them a big fixed fee, you offer them a variable one. You offer them a royalty. You say, hey, instead of cash, I'll give you, say, 2% of every single game we sell. All of a sudden, their success is tied directly to your success. You've perfectly aligned your goals without spending a single dollar. Okay, one problem down. But now for the really big one. Manufacturing thousands of board games means a huge upfront payment to a factory. Again, your pockets are totally empty. How do you solve this puzzle?
And the answer is maybe one of the most powerful bootstrapping strategies there is. You sell it before you build it. You go on a site like Kickstarter, you create a fantastic campaign, and you get customers to pre-order the game. Then you use their money to pay the manufacturer. It's genius. Your customers just became your first investors.
So you see, the Sharky game wasn't just a fun little example. It actually showed us the repeatable, powerful strategies that make up the core of the bootstrapper's playbook. So let's break those down into some golden rules.
Okay, the number one most important rule is this. Whenever and wherever you can, you turn a fixed cost into a variable cost. Think about it. A fixed cost, like a $10,000 fee to a designer, is a huge risk. If your game flops, you've just lost 10 grand. But a variable cost, like a 2% royalty, that's just smart. You only pay the designer when you're actually making money. It completely takes the risk off the table.
So, if you remember anything, remember these 3 golden rules. We just saw the first 2 in action. Convert your costs and sell before you build. The third one is just as important. Leverage your networks. Every single person you know is a potential resource, a potential partner, a potential first customer that you can tap into without spending cash. In all of this, it really boils down to this one critical idea. For a bootstrapper, cash is oxygen. Seriously, if you run out, your business dies. It's that simple. So your entire focus has to be on finding ways to generate cash as fast as humanly possible, because that revenue is the very thing that lets you breathe and grow.
Okay, so now that we get the how, let's talk about the when. Because look, bootstrapping isn't always the perfect answer for every single company. It's a strategic choice, and it's really important to understand the trade-offs when you compare it to that traditional venture capital path.
Let's just break it down side by side. When you're bootstrapping, you keep 100% of the control. It's your ship, you're the captain. But your growth is going to be slower because it's tied to your profits. Your focus has to be on making cash. Now with VC, you trade some of that control for rocket fuel. You can grow explosively fast, and your focus is on grabbing market share even if it means you're not profitable for years.
And we have to be realistic here. You can't bootstrap a company like SpaceX. It's just not going to happen. Some ideas, we're talking deep science, biotech, massive global platforms, they need a crazy amount of money just to get the lights on. For those kinds of revolutionary ideas, bootstrapping just isn't an option.
But this brings us to what might be the smartest strategy of all, the hybrid approach. See, the best entrepreneurs don't always see this as an either-or choice. They'll often bootstrap their way to something called product-market fit, which is just proof that their business model works and that customers actually want what they're selling. And then, once they've proven it works, they'll raise VC money to step on the gas and scale like crazy.
So where does that leave us? We've talked about the mindset, we've walked through the playbook, we've laid out the strategy, we've seen that you do not need $1 million check to start building something amazing. What you really need is resourcefulness and a bit of creativity.
That 95%, they're not just lucky, they're playing a different game, a smarter game. It's a game of turning big costs into small ones, selling your idea first, and using every single resource you have at your disposal. So the only question left is, now that you have the playbook, what are you going to build?